You're driving down the interstate at like 70 miles an hour, and suddenly the whole horizon just turns orange. It feels chaotic, right? Cones, flashing lights, heavy machinery everywhere.
Oh, totally. But you're actually navigating a highly choreographed visual language.
Right, and that's what we're jumping into for today's deep dive. We've got this 2026 Safety Operations resource, and our mission is to, well, decode the hidden physics and the psychology behind work zone safety.
Yeah, and the grammar for that visual language is something called the MUTCD.
The Manual on
Yeah.
Uniform Traffic Control Devices, right?
Exactly. But the standardization in the manual isn't just about bureaucracy. It's really about hacking driver psychology because, uniformity creates predictable behavior.
Makes sense. Like when you see a specific sequence of retroreflective orange, your brain just subconsciously starts the deceleration process, right? Before you even actively think about slowing down.
You do. And to see how that translates to the asphalt, you have to look at how a temporary traffic control zone is actually built from scratch.
Right, the 4 parts. The advance warning, transition, activity, and termination areas.
Spot on. And the friction between that perfect paper standard and, actual driver fatigue is fascinating. The sizing and spacing are super rigid.
Because they just assume drivers are exhausted or, like, completely distracted?
Yeah, especially in the transition area. The cone spacing isn't just a suggestion. It's engineered to create visual compression.
Visual compression, like narrowing the lane.
Sort of, yeah. It narrows your visual field at specific intervals, so it forces this involuntary lift off the accelerator.
Oh, wow. So it bridges the gap between the perfect rule book and, well, us flawed human drivers.
Precisely. But I mean, visual compression on paper is completely useless if the physical hardware blows over the second a semi-truck flies by.
Right, because of that massive
Right,
slipstream.
yeah.
So you had this impossible balance where the gear has to be light enough to deploy quickly, but tough enough to handle massive wind shear.
Yeah, and the resource highlights Eastern Metal Science and Safety for this. Their X500 and C-stands are perfect examples of hitting that balance.
I saw that in the notes. Because they don't just use dead weight, right? Like a heavy rigid sign would just act like a sail.
Exactly. Would just catch the wind and tip over eventually. But the X500 uses a dual spring mechanism at the base.
Wait, so the base bends?
Yeah. So when that 70-mile-per-hour wall of wind hits it, the mast actually yields. It deflects the wind load downward and snaps back instead of, fighting the sheer force outright.
That is wild. They're like dynamic shock absorbers. They actually use the wind's own kinetic energy to stay planted.
They really do. But, even with all that wind-resistant hardware, the ultimate variable is human execution, the actual field deployment.
Because there's a really strict order of operations for setting it up, especially the taper rate.
Very strict.
Yeah?
Sight distances have to mathematically match the approaching speed limits, and they use formulas from MUTCD Table 6C1 for that.
I was looking at that table. The math isn't just a simple linear scale, is it?
No, not at all. For high speeds, like anything 45 miles per hour and above the taper length, is just the speed limit multiplied by the lane width.
Okay, simple enough.
But at lower speeds, the formula actually uses the speed squared.
Speed squared. Wait, really?
Yeah, because it directly accounts for perception reaction times. It ensures a driver has the physical distance to process the visual cue, react, and safely merge.
It's pure physics, and I guess that highlights the industry shift from just getting the job done to, well, getting home safe.
Exactly. It's a huge cultural shift.
I mean, I get the shift in theory, but let's be real about field conditions for a second. There is immense pressure on crews to clear roadwork fast to minimize delays. Doesn't that pressure and, angry traffic cause crews to rush the taper deployment?
You are hitting on the core tension of the entire industry right there. Yes, the pressure is massive, and honestly, crews do get tempted to just eyeball the spacing.
Instead of pacing it out perfectly.
Right. But the data shows that skipping steps or compressing that taper length causes an immediate spike in rear end and merge collisions.
Because the physics of a speeding car won't forgive a rushed cone placement, no matter how much traffic is backed up behind them.
Exactly. It's zero tolerance physics.
Wow. So for you listening, the next time you navigate an interstate construction site, remember you aren't just looking at random plastic cones scattered on the pavement.
Not at all. You're reading a carefully calculated visual language of tapers, visual compression, and wind load engineered signs.
All designed specifically to keep you and the workers alive. It's an incredible system.
It really is, but it does leave us with a pretty massive question for the near future.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if human safety in these work zones relies entirely on hacking the psychology of human drivers through standardized visual patterns, How will our road setups need to adapt when autonomous vehicles, which process raw data, not psychology, become the majority on our highways?